talking to some of the trainees. We'll be also talking to some of the trainers, and we'll be sounding their opinion on the rationale behind this and then what actually it entails. Usually, regional offices also served as venues where officials of the directorates were converged to get the feel of the about to be introduced participatory performance monitoring through school performance monitoring meetings that should be staged yearly by the lower basic schools and the communities.
PPM means participatory performance monitoring. And I need to explain those three words to you. Participatory. It's the participation of the community in the life of the school to encourage and aid its success. And its success is measured by the second word, participatory performance. Performance is exam performance, whether it's NAT results, whether it's GABAK. Participation then from the community to help the performance of a school in terms of its exam results. Monitoring is important, an important word, because already we know that schools have an internal monitoring system. And that internal monitoring system monitors the professional behaviour of teachers. So we look at classroom preparation, teaching preparation, classroom delivery, and other forms of monitoring of the life of the school. It might be the hygiene standards, the water, the food, other things that have to be monitored. So there's an internal monitoring system that's well established now. We have external monitoring, and in the minimum standards, you'll see that the first strand is cluster monitoring. So that's why we have the cluster monitors. They're now well established and well able to go into schools and make judgments about the strengths, the areas for development, and they can help the schools meet the minimum standards. External monitoring by region. There's also a second regional external monitoring where regional staff go to visit schools. And that's a form of external monitoring, and you'll choose what it is you want to monitor as a region, and you'll give feedback and support to help the school. SCAD is an external monitor. SCAD chooses schools all around the country and then goes and applies the minimum standards to those schools to check, are the cluster monitors in line, is the scoring right, what are we seeing in schools from a different pair of eyes, a different perspective. Now, that's quite well established, but the final piece of external monitoring is community monitoring. And we know from the minimum standards, there's a section on community monitoring where a school should encourage the SMC to be involved with monitoring the life of the school. But it can be something that the school and the SMC or PTA work together to decide how they're going to do. And it's not always appropriate for an SMC member to make professional judgments about what's going on in school because they're not professionally trained. But they can make judgments about other things because they're able to, they can see if the school is thriving and meeting its policy statements. But PPM starts to say the community deserves a lot of information, clear information about how successful the school is. And you do that through the use of something called the community scorecard. And I don't know how many of you are aware of something called the school report card and the community scorecard, but it starts to make transparent information about each individual school so that once a year the community can get together and look at information about the school that's been collected centrally, and that information can be shared. I'm going to show you the community scorecard as part of this presentation, and we'll go through what it looks like at the moment. It's not absolutely finished yet, but it's nearly finished. Okay, people are looking at the poster. We'll come to the poster shortly and explain why we have that poster and what it's for. So, why PPM? Why have we decided to do this? Well, largely because education research shows the more you can involve a community in the life of a school, the more likely a school is to be successful. And that can take different forms, but if the community is involved, particularly the parents, then you'll get all sections of the life of a child covered. The teachers are doing their job, the Ministry is doing their job by providing the books and the furniture and the buildings, and the parents are doing their job by providing time for children to do homework, to come to school on time, to attend regularly. So everyone has a part to play in the success of students in a school. We know that research tells us this is a good thing. We also know that it's been implemented in 2 other African countries, Ghana and Uganda. And in terms of Ghana, it's been around for about 10 years, Uganda about 7 or 8 years. And they have noticed an improvement. And it's part of their monitoring processes that they've implemented in their systems that have shown that this works. Back in 2002, Mr. Jeng and Mrs. Njai from HR led a group to Ghana to look at it in action. And there was talk back then in 2002, 2003 of this PPM. But for lots of reasons, the timing wasn't right. It couldn't get off the ground. The timing is right now. So now we have to implement PPM. And this is why we're going to all the schools in their clusters to explain what's coming and to explain to you how important this is. So we know this will help if it's done properly. So you need to know what you can do as regional staff to help this process move forward. So the nuts and bolts then. When and where does this take place? There's 2 parts to PPM, 2 essential parts. One part is having the scorecard, and the other part is having an annual meeting at which that scorecard is discussed. So when is this annual meeting? For this academic year, what we plan to do is do the sensitization now. We will train the chairpersons of these meetings in January, February, produce a handbook. The scorecard should be ready so that we can go for the first annual meetings in March or April of 2012. But all subsequent academic years, it will hopefully take place between October and November. Now, we can't have a single date because every school should be free to choose its own date. But the idea is that you complete your exams in the summer term. The exams are marked, the results are known. When the results are known, it goes into the scorecard. Then you can have your meeting. All right? So that's why we're thinking October, November, every year after this year. So that's what we're looking at. Now, where should these meetings take place? It seems obvious to say the meeting should take place in the school, but that's not always appropriate. If a school has already got good community relations, people might come, and that's fine. But if that's not the case with that particular school, the school can choose to take the meeting to where the community is. So it might be at a banter bar. There's all sorts of different places it could be chosen. But the idea is to go where the people are so that they can attend the meeting and start from now to build up relationships so that people are aware of these meetings on an annual basis. And when we come to the poster, one of these is going to be available for each school so they can start the conversation going. Okay. So before I get into the detail, let me explain what PPM is not. The meeting itself is crucial. And we cannot have a meeting where we cannot have PPM where one of the 2 elements is missing. You can't have a meeting without the scorecard because the meeting is not a general meeting like how's the school doing. It's a specific meeting looking at specific data. So you can't have a meeting without the scorecard. And you can't have the scorecard available in the school without having a meeting to discuss it. So in terms of minimum standards, PPM only exists if there is a meeting with a scorecard. Do you see? Okay. The second thing it can't be is a witch hunt. It is not a forum for anyone to point the finger at anybody else. So it is not appropriate, and excuse me for using the finger pointing, but it is not appropriate to say, you are a terrible maths teacher and all our problems in this school come from your terrible maths teaching. Not appropriate. It is not appropriate to say to a parent, your child is very, very naughty and disrupts everything and it's your child's fault that our school isn't doing very well. All right? It's not about any personalities. It's not about calling anybody's name. It's about let's look at our school as a whole. So what can we do